Just letting you know, we bought VMware, you're not a partner anymore, and neither is anybody else. Happy Christmas.
Well, what do we do now?
Not our problem, but good news. All of these products are gone. I mean, simplified. Here's our new bundle.
Right, and how's this priced?
It's more expensive.
Any new features?
None. Maybe less as time goes by.
Will support improve?
Probably not.
What if we only want one product out of the bundle?
Sorry, not an option.
Firstly, what's happened at VMware?
Well, they were acquired by Broadcom, which means for us that everything we sort of knew and love about VMware has changed. So things like the pricing, the bundles, the support, the website, the licensing, everything has changed. Mm-hmm. So this, thinking back to great timing right before Christmas, we get a notice saying that, hey, things are changing. We're serving notice on all of our partners, but we don't quite know what's next. So at that point, how do you go back to your customers and say, well, we don't know what's next? So because you can't communicate anything until you actually know.
Yeah.
So we were left in limbo, and it was only actually probably to me it felt like a little bit disorganized, because it was, I think, maybe like 8 to 12 weeks later before we actually got confirmation of how that was going to look like.
Yep.
And effectively for us, obviously as a business now, we sell private cloud and we have infrastructure as a service. But for us, and for the past 2 years, Azure has been one growth area for us that is now probably at 75% plus of our clients that were on IaaS and private cloud have now moved to Azure. And we didn't want to be signing a long-term commit with VMware to be one of their sort of top tier partners, because to be a top tier partner, you are setting the bar extremely high in terms of your spend with them. And there's only so many of those in the UK. I imagine VMware had probably thousands and thousands of clients, because almost there was sort of a very small minimum entry fee. And of course, previously it was all built on gigabytes of RAM consumption, not for every product, but for most products. So it's super simple. As a provider, you can sell 10 gig of RAM, you're going to pay for 10 gig of RAM, and that's super easy to price for clients. Now, not everything, but most things are per CPU core. So now you're having to license a physical CPU core, whether you've got a host sat there idle as M+1, or whether you want excess capacity to enable you to transition customers up to public cloud, or just to keep capacity for those kind of opportunities that appear where you need a lot of capacity very, very quickly. And I think they sort of, still to this day, some things still don't work. I believe lots of people still can't get quotes. Mm. They can't process pricing. It's, we're in July now. Why is that still not right? It's insane for an enterprise vendor, yeah. Worth, I'm sure, billions.
Yeah.
Why is that not right? Surely going into an acquisition like Broadcom acquiring VMware, you'd want to have all your ducks in a row and be super organized.
Yeah.
And it feels like that's definitely not the case.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think they moved so fast without planning it out? Do you think there was maybe a motive behind that?
I suppose we could speculate that Broadcom is VC/PE backed, and at the end of the day, they need to maximize shareholder value very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And it seems to me if you can take 300 products or whatever it might have been down to, let's say, 10, and reduce your headcount by 30% and reduce your partners by probably over 75%, you can probably create some immediate shareholder value.
Yeah.
And I suppose you can also make the assumption those enterprise customers are going to find it hard to get away. What else are they going to do? And it does feel like that. Mm-hmm. But the reality is the market will make a decision. And I'm not sure, having been stung this hard, especially at the level of organization that's gone into the transition, people aren't going to want to stick around. We don't want to stick around. We're not, once bitten, twice shy. We're not going to stick around to see what happens next. There will be customers where actually, VMware is a good long-term fit. And that's absolutely fine. And we'll continue to provide VMware services. Yeah. But do we want to be saying that's the go forward model, everyone's going to be on VMware? No. And I'm glad to say that, we were already 75% of the way there when this information came along.
Broadly, what does this change mean for customers of VMware?
So it means increased prices. It means a tricky situation accessing support. It means potentially no new features, no new value that you'll be paying for with no benefit. It'll mean you're being given a bundle where you might want one product, and actually you can't just buy that one product. It's now rolled in together. I suppose there is an element of you're getting some simplification of procuring services, but out of all the models that we ran for clients in terms of the commercials, I think only one environment was cost neutral, and it was cost neutral where the client was heavily invested into vSAN.
Yep.
That was the only time, and also that particular client had CPU cores that aligned perfectly to VMware Broadcom's new sort of 16 core per physical CPU limit. So there it did make a little bit of sense. But yes, that was the only time we've seen it make commercial sense with somebody. And the thing is, when you look at public cloud, which I'm sure we'll get into, like that's like it's now the sort of argument always used to be when we talk to people is, well, public cloud's perceived as expensive, and obviously there's a lot more to that statement because there's a lot of bells and whistles in Azure that you're not going to go and build like all the data platforms that Azure's got on your own internal platform. Of course you could, but why would you invest all that time in that?
Of course.
Whereas now, and there was a delta previously, a delta of like, let's say 20% more investment. But now the investment increase might only be 5% because VMware have increased the price so much. So that's, I think that's potentially the shift that we'll see as a result of that change.
Just thinking about Broadcom, we've talked about them a lot now. What is Broadcom's track record?
I mean, I remember when Symantec was a good vendor. Going back, this is like a long time. Perhaps even before I worked properly in IT. In fact, actually, my first IT job, we used Symantec products, and it was okay. But yeah, I mean, like you don't hear anyone talking about Symantec anymore. Guess who bought them? Broadcom. So they've just not got a fantastic track record.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you think about risk and like to be in a position where you've got a great piece of software that's delivered many, many enterprise virtualization environments to then get told, Broadcom have taken over, and then there's almost like silence around what's actually happening. Then all of a sudden, we as a partner get notice, like X days before Christmas, and by the way, there's nothing else to tell you right now. We'll tell you when there's more information. That's just not helpful. And why do you want to associate yourself with a business that conducts itself in that way? And that's the same way that mid-market enterprises will be thinking about this as well.
Absolutely. How has this change impacted us?
Well, it caused us to evaluate our strategy going forwards. So we've always been sort of clear, like particularly over the past 2 years, that our focus is on Azure. And we've always had that private cloud aspect. But what it will start to do is, and we do sometimes, in fact, not really so much in the last year have we even really quoted private cloud, but we're always mindful that there are situations where it's well suited for, because if you've got a lot of always on infrastructure, sometimes it's going to make sense to do that. Or you need to achieve a particular SLA, it's going to make sense to do that. But when it comes to the delta now, as we spoke about before, like it's so small that 9 times out of 10, in fact, I imagine now like 99% of the time, it will just make more sense in Azure. And okay, I suppose there's a risk long term that we get caught in the same trap, but I don't see Microsoft coming along and hacking the prices up like X 100% or X multiples,
Absolutely.
the way that Broadcom have.
Yeah.
Because the market just wouldn't respond to it. It's a highly competitive space, and there are lots of options, Amazon, Google, that keep driving that price down almost.
Are there any real benefits to clients now that Broadcom have taken over?
So I suppose some of this depends how things pan out, because I suppose that the less products you have, the less partners you have, the easier it should be to streamline the business internally. Maybe you can achieve a higher throughput in terms of bringing out new innovations and improving that release cadence of stuff. But at the same time, though, they've thinned out the product line. Like me and you were looking at some software to do cost management. Like it's a VMware product. I think it's Aria we spoke about. So that particular product, I don't think it's even in the roadmap or in the lineup anymore. Like I think it's one of the ones they canned.
Yeah.
But like that sort of stuff, like where there was a growth opportunity in our account for VMware to sell more stuff to us. Now we're going to go and find something else to go and do that now.
Yeah.
So I think, sadly, in summary, the answer is no. It's more money for potentially less of the same.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
And just me thinking out loud now. This is just
it blows my mind the opportunity that must have like you're acquiring a giant like VMware that you could buy Dell servers with VMware stuff attached, and then like here we are. Like now you can't buy it from an OEM. Like they've got rid of all that stuff. All right, VMware on Azure still exists. VMware on AWS I think still exists.
Yeah.
Like that stuff is astronomical, and I think it's really only a stopgap between I need to go to Azure. I'm going to stick it on VMware and Azure because I've got some stuff I can't quickly move over.
Yeah. Which could be your staff. You could have 30 VMware experts, and you can't just move that skill set to Azure instantly. No. And you've got to make sure, business continuity, you need to look after all your services.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can do the stopgap, use VPS, get them on Azure temporarily. So
and they were 100% counting on that. Like they know that like that large enterprise with 5 data centers full of 1,000 hosts.
Yeah.
Like risk-wise, there is no way they want to move all that stuff to Azure overnight.
It's a 3-year plan for big companies. Yeah,
exactly.
And they gave you 3 weeks notice.
Yeah, and then that doesn't help us with our customers either. But they will know that though. That's why they did it. Like I fully believe that was tactical.
Yep, absolutely. So, what have we been doing about this?
So, like I said, we were lucky that we're already like 75% of the way there. We've been evaluating various different options, and as much as it pains me, I think when it comes to private cloud solutions, VMware is still the leader. Now, you've got players like Nutanix that sort of sit on the periphery, have a really, really good product, but I think they've slightly capitalized on the fact that this thing has happened and they've driven their prices up. So effectively, I think currently it's not a good time to buy Nutanix because they know that they're in a great position as a business. Mm-hmm. Granted, I've not like necessarily seen that. It's just what I've taken from talking to other people. But people will be looking at open source. But again, open source is the problem that you're not going to get that enterprise support, which like with VMware, to its credit, like the P1 support is actually really good.
Yeah, it is excellent. Yeah.
And we've like those problems where like you just can't fix them. You need a VMware, almost like dev, so to speak, to come on and do something for you that you just can't do yourself.
Yeah.
And that's like for us as an organization, doing open source would be a little bit tricky. But I think like private cloud wise, VMware is up there, but that's going to drive an adoption. I suppose what it's going to drive is more new players in the market who perceive an opportunity. The likes of like Open Nebula, Civo, Proxmox, and like various other like sort of open source type vendors. Some of those are commercial offerings, but it's ultimately going to drive a lot of people to Azure, like or another public cloud of choice.
Yeah. So thinking about the future, is there anything to stop more price hikes?
I suppose contractually there might be some protections if you're taking the 3-year commit, but given that they already axed all partners with hardly any notice, and there are provisions for them to probably repeat that, I'm not so sure that there is any real protection in honesty. Yeah. And it's that like once that's happened to you, how can you trust that will never happen again? You can't. So we're just being upfront with our customers, that the prices could go up. So if we make the decision to stay on VMware, we can't promise that a year from now, 2 years from now, that we won't be able to protect you from those price hikes because they might happen. Yeah.
So what's our recommendation?
I think it depends how far you are into VMware. You got to work out the delta. So we're currently spending, I don't know, let's say you're spending £300,000 a year on VMware. It's actually going to cost me £450,000 a year to stay on VMware. Well, what's it going to cost you to do an alternative solution, a Nutanix platform? What's the gap you've got to address in terms of skill set in your organization to go and implement that? How are you going to transition your workload over? Yeah. They've got a hypervisor called Acropolis that accommodates most applications. i.e. Citrix MCS is supported in Acropolis, AHV. But I guess it's just looking at what the other options are. And for me personally, like now, the drive to public cloud has never been bigger. Yeah. Like the amount of organizations we talk to on a weekly basis where the conversation is, we're going to Azure, can you help us? Is phenomenal. Like it's such a big kick to be like, why are we stood waiting around for this to either happen now or happen again? Yeah. What can we do to minimize it? And actually, if the gap between the sort of like, almost like legacy private cloud environment we're on now, it's 5% more to move to Azure, but we get, data factories, Synapse, we get all this AI, this automation, all these things that are built for us. We don't have to go and build on-prem. Like, why aren't we moving? And really, that's what clients need to be doing, is thinking, you know what, time to take stock,
Yeah.
reflect, and do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you should call us.
Are you going to call? I guess one thing, like thinking as a techie,
Yep.
what do I do if I've spent all my life learning VMware and now the market is going like it's just pivoted because of a Broadcom change? So there's lots of companies still using VMware. VMware is still massive.
Yep.
That might change because of the price changes and whatever else that Broadcom might put in the background. What do I do as a techie that knows VMware inside and out and I've been doing it for a decade? How do I convert my skill set? If I'm worried, is there something I should be looking at? What do you think I should do?
I think that's a good one. And you're right. Yeah, like there is a read. I guess the thing is, hypervisor technology is not going anywhere. There are lots of organizations where you've got cross-transferable skills into the likes of like Hyper-V or another hypervisor platform of choice. But that's, I guess, you need to be thinking now about public cloud because IaaS workloads are reducing over time and they're only going to get smaller as people use more platforms as a service. So it's never going to go completely. But I think if you haven't already, now is the time to go out and start specializing in your public cloud vendor of choice, whoever that might be.
Yeah.
If you like today's video, like, comment, subscribe. See you in the next one.
Hit the buttons. Hit the buttons.
Hit the buttons.
See ya. Tick the bell.